Okay, so what made you become an art therapist?
I've been wanting to be an art therapist for the past 20 years. And I think partly because when I was younger, I did not live in a safe house. And I was told little girls should be seen and not heard. So I was very quiet and had a lot that I needed to say and tell people about. And so I would doodle a lot. And although people didn't understand my doodles and scribbles, I noticed I felt better. And so gradually I used art throughout my life to help me feel better, to move away from some of the behaviors that I was working on that were not healthy for me, and to understand why I was so upset and scared and all those things. And that evolved into me being a therapeutic artist. Shall I go on?
Go for it.
So that a therapeutic artist is somebody who uses art as a way to help explore inner feelings, but is not a therapist. So they assist people to help them start to share their feelings to an extent, but can't go deeper.
Right.
And I had almost given up on my goal of being an art therapist because of money and time. And I was really fortunate in the last couple of years to meet an art therapy school that provided an opportunity for me. So my goal is to help people heal using art as a modality.
Okay, next one. What are some of the hardest things about your job?
The hardest things is seeing the pain in people. And not just the pain you would expect, like a traumatic story being explained or revisiting a past trauma or even a current trauma. That's hard, and it's hard not to cry along with a client. The harder part, though, is when a client isn't able to access those feelings, or they get close to exploring and working on an issue and then fear gets in the way and they shut it back down. And that's really hard to watch time after time.
What is the most uncomfortable situation you have been put in without breaking confidentiality with the client?
I like the way you worded that question, for one.
Yeah.
There are, well, how would I say it without breaking confidentiality? You know, actually, there's been a number of uncomfortable situations simply because you don't know what a client's going to bring to the table until they bring it to the table. So often it's not so much discomfort or judgment of what's being said. It's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And then it's uncomfortable. But one I can share with you that's quite straightforward is I did my practicum placement at a Chinese care center here in town with seniors. And it was painfully uncomfortable for me because not only was the environment not what I expected, but the seniors were so advanced in their dementia as well as their physical inabilities. And there was no common language. They didn't speak English and I didn't speak Mandarin. And I'd like to say the art was going to speak for us, but when they ate the Play-Doh thinking it was pudding, and I had absolutely no way of actually succeeding in this position, it was the most uncomfortable I've ever been.
Okay. Have you ever felt in danger by a client or like being around a client?
Good question. Now, are you having to transcribe these? Because I'm giving you long answers.
No. This is all like recorded, so we can just play it, I believe.
So I've never felt in danger with a client yet, but there have been times where I have to be careful that the materials I have around are not something the client can hurt themselves with. Right. So for example, if a client is using self-harm as a way to regulate emotions and deal with emotions, then of course I have to prejudge a lot of things and make sure scissors aren't out, knives aren't out, and things like that. I've been fortunate at present, whether it's been in the mental health unit of the hospital or in other practicums or with private clients, I've never felt unsafe. Oh, can I take that back?
Yeah.
There was one place I felt unsafe, and I can share this without breaking confidentiality. I worked in a youth prison.
Wow, that's gotta be really uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I know it's uncomfortable because it makes my chest tight even remembering that. And what was most uncomfortable was there were only 4 youth that were imprisoned that I was working with in one group, but 6 adults to oversee them.
That's a lot.
And that imbalance of numbers scared me, and the fact that there was no way out. Every door was locked behind me. And I felt incredibly unsafe. I'm not sure if I felt unsafe about the participants,
Right.
or my anxiety of being locked in that situation.
Right. Okay, well, on a lighter note, we're kind of like variegating. So like, what are the hours like? Would you like what are the hours like? It's a
great
question.
These are excellent questions.
Thank you.
The hours are challenging because you can only fit so many clients in a day.
Yeah.
So even if you had a lot of clients that are looking to work with you and had the money and had the resources and were ready, you can't fit in 8 clients a day. Yeah. You have to have space between clients, and you have to be able to regulate your own motions as well as make your client notes, follow up with client reports, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Clients don't want to book between 9 and 5. They've got work and school and other things. So clients I see on weekends, I see in evenings, I see throughout the day. It is a challenge.
Right. Okay. Next one is, what advice would you share with someone hoping to try and get into this field?
It is the most rewarding field I've ever been in, and I've had a number of careers leading me to this one. However, depending on who you're going to work for, whether you work at Family and Children's Services and the Ministry of Child and Family Services, or a government position, private practice, the best advice I can give is take care of yourself first. The rule is you don't engage with a client outside of work. However, you don't stop thinking about them, even though you know it's not beneficial to keep overthinking their issues and so on. It's hard. You're compassionate, so you think about people, you worry about people. And if you're working in an environment where you're listening to an extreme amount of trauma day after day, then you get something called vicarious trauma, where you absorb, if you like, the trauma states, and you can get burnout. So the big thing is you first. Self-care, self-care, self-care.
Yeah. And then like your education, I just what is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
The steps and everything.
You need at least a minimum of a bachelor's degree or equivalent. So if you're older and you took a different kind of degree or in a different country, then it can be evaluated and see if they can accept it.
Yeah.
But for every school across Canada for art therapy to be registered with the Canadian Art Therapy Association, you have to have psychology in your degree, or outside of your degree, you have to have some arts background, but a minimum of a BA. Then you are going to enroll through an interview process, transcripts and portfolio. You will enroll for 18 months to 2 years of courses. You will range your courses from everything from studio working one-on-one in dyads, which is couples, or in group, mental illness, mental wellness, ethics and legal issues, approaches to art therapy, and then you'll have to write a thesis or do an arts-based thesis, as well as research. After around 18 to 24 months of courses, you have to do, are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
700 hours of practicum.
Great.
350 of those have to be direct client hours, sitting opposite your client or with your client for 350 hours. If you pass all that with a minimum of 70%, then you graduate and become a professional member of the Art Therapy Association. Doesn't end there.
Okay.
That will get you a job in most places, in hospitals, schools, and private practice. However, if you want to work for an art therapy school, or you're in competition with other art therapists, you need to go for your highest designation, which is called Registered Art Therapist. And it requires you to do an additional 1,000 direct client hours that are supervised. So right now, for every 10 hours of client time, I get an hour of supervision.
Yeah.
When I'm graduated and working towards my registration, every 20 hours of client time, I have to pay privately for an hour of supervision.
Wow. Okay. Well, that kind of led me, that kind of answered my last question, the next question, which was how long did it take you? But you're kind of still in the process, so.
I'm just, dare I say, tomorrow I meet with my thesis advisors. I've made a video final project, and they start the assessment tomorrow, but it will still take me the rest of the year. I've been very fortunate because I work for the art therapy school as well, that I have been able to get extra supervision. I've been able to double up on classes.
Right.
I hope to graduate oh, dare I say it out loud, by January 2019, which would have meant I took just over 2 years and 2 months to complete.
Right, and you had some special circumstances as well with this, so usually it would take most people a little bit longer.
Definitely. I was fortunate that my supervisors, I work with them. So I have extra training, I TA the classes,
Right.
I've taken every class at least 3 times.
Right.
I haven't had to do the assignments 3 times, thank goodness, but I have the advantage and disadvantage of being involved in the art therapy school, but I still have to qualify the exact same way as everybody else. I just get extra training.
Right. Okay, so what are some pros and cons of the job? Like just some basic ones.
Pros and cons. The pros are obviously you make a huge difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
More than that, your clients are doing all the work. So don't get big-headed that I can heal people. No. You just guide clients with the materials and the processes. The clients do all the work. The cons, honestly, in Canada, art therapy is not well known. Music therapy has got a better reputation. So when people hear an art therapist, they think you took a weekend course. And they go, oh, that's nice. I did a bit of art therapy. And they have no idea it's taken you 2 years and $30,000.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So they're the biggest or the most simple pros and cons. It's extremely rewarding, but it can be extremely exhausting.
Right.
And people don't understand the amount of work you've done, and they don't value art therapy the way they do music therapy or psychotherapy.
Like they don't see it at the same standard?
Yeah. It's changing though. It really is growing as a field, but it's been around since the 40s. And it's just not getting the reputation it deserves. And I think it's because with music, I can put you through a brain scan while you're listening to music, but I can't put you through a brain scan while you're moving clay, right?
Yeah. Okay, well, so this one's, I was like, it's kind of your choice how you want to answer it. It's kind of interpreted. But what are you hoping for your clients? Like, what is your goal for them? Because I know every situation is different. Sometimes it's anxiety and sometimes it's like depression. But in a general like state, like what is your goal for?
Well, it's, again, an excellent question. My goal is the same for every client, no matter what they come here for. And that is to find within themselves their own honesty, their own truth, and more importantly, their own voice. And it's going to be a visual voice first. Be able to feel safe enough that they can explore what they have to explore and feel honored, respected, and validated. I don't care if I work with somebody for years and there's no breakthrough, so long as I can feel or the client reports that they're really starting to feel safe and starting to open up, even if they don't go out and make the change in their life, but they find for themselves their own honor and respect. Okay.
So, this is like, it's a little bit weirdly worded, but do you do anything within the confines of your job description to make your client feel individualized? Like, is there anything that you do as an art therapist that you find works and is helpful that most art therapists probably wouldn't?
Yeah. Now I'm nervous. Is my supervisor going to hear this? Yes. So there's a continuum of art therapy from the purists, which relies solely on the art to be the voice and the transference for a client. So transference is that passing of feelings. So if a client is angry, they might be angry at the therapist. The transference is to the therapist.
Yeah.
In art therapy, it goes into the page or to the sculpture. So the therapist may sit back and be quiet for the whole 45 minutes of the art process and then ask the client to reflect.
Yeah.
But it will be very much arts-based and purism. The other end of the spectrum is more expressive arts, and that's where I tend to fall. So I have been known with my clients to burn things. I've been known to go for walks with my clients, to move around. I have a very large space. I've been known to move around the entire space.
Yeah.
To break things, to use objects you wouldn't normally see in an art therapy studio. And I have personally chosen to have an extensively stocked studio. Yeah. So that if somebody says, do you have pink thread? I can lay my hands on it. Do you have a hammer? Yes. Do you have this? There's been very few times where all my clients have come up with something I don't have. And as soon as they do, I get it. Because to me, I don't want to miss a beat.
Yeah.
And if it means you're going to work extremely large or extremely small, whether I'm going to focus on your breathing and the somatic part, focus on neuro-linguistic programming, getting you to use your olfactory, the smells as well as sounds, and art. So for me, it's holistic, not purist.
Right. Okay. So what are your favorite parts of the job? Like what's the best parts about it?
Just seeing people come in and so unsure of what they want to work on, or even understanding the emotions that's going through them.
Yeah.
And being disillusioned by the idea of art, how can it possibly help? And really seeing the light bulb moment come on as they've discovered something about themselves, or they've seen something in the art that I, as a therapist, may have seen many sessions before, and then suddenly they see it.
Yeah.
And that sort of, or people walk away again, I had no idea moving paint around a piece of paper and throwing it away afterwards could shift my inner thinking and my inner feelings.
Okay. Wow. All right. So do you find yourself sometimes mixing like work and home? Like, do you ever, like we touched on this, but do you ever experience that stress and anxiety carried over from your clients?
I do. And I'm working very hard to put up boundaries between that.
Yeah.
But I also know I don't want to lose who I am. So if a client is in crisis and I get a text and I'm able to answer that text or that phone call, I will. Mm-hmm. In theory, I would then check that they're safe. And if they're safe, ask them to make an appointment and come back and see me. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I make sure somebody's safe. Otherwise, there would be an emergency situation. But I might open up a space to see them before I perhaps can afford to do that.
Yeah.
Or if a client is struggling financially, I might miss a payment or two. Yeah. And a lot of it comes from I'm very compassionate, so I worry about my clients perhaps a little more than I should. Maybe that'll go with years, but right now it hasn't. And I think about what's going on in their lives, because for me, as I reflect on it, I might see something we didn't see in the session, and I will only bring it up if that client has brought back up that same issue, and I'll say, I've been reflecting on that, and have you thought of this? Or I recognize this pattern in you.
Right. Okay. So what are some coping strategies that you do to help with that stress?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, both my supervisors are also my work colleagues. Yeah. So quite often I can go to them and confidentially talk to them about the issue. Yeah. Or I can say, I was awake at 4 a.m. thinking about this, and I know I shouldn't be, but... Yeah. And then I have some other visual ones. So if it's a very, very painful story and I need to hear it and feel it to give enough empathy, that's my belief. But I can't keep it. Yeah. So I have a visual of a water slide. Right. So when it's the most incredibly painful stories, a water slide, the story will come in and touch the sides of me and inside of me and be there for the time and then flow through. Right. Okay. And then, would you recommend art therapy as a career path, and why? It depends on the person's situation. So, yes, I would. Yeah. If the person's in it for the right reasons. Right. It is so rewarding, and it's such an amazing... The things you see shift in people after they've been to a talk therapist for years and years and years, and then they'll have their breakthrough for art. Not because of me as a therapist or because art's so fantastic, but it reaches... Mark making reaches a part of the brain talk cannot. So, yes, it is rewarding, it's magical, it's wonderful, but it's not always lucrative. Right. So it depends on the person's situation. Could have I afforded to be this art therapist when I first left university? My life then, back in England, I couldn't have done it. Yeah. Somebody else leaving university may have done. But for me right now, I can afford to do it. Yeah. And I don't have to work for an agency or a prison where I'm working 6 to 8 hours a day, back-to-back clients, listening to the harshest of stories. Yeah. I think I would ask that person, if you weren't to be an art therapist, what else would you do? And unless there's a very good alternative, I'd say go for it.
Right. Okay, cool. Well, that's
and otherwise I'd probably still say go for it, even if there was an alternative. But I'm biased.
I mean, yeah. Okay, well, thank you. That was all my questions.
Well, they're excellent questions. Thanks for such great questions. That's fabulous.
Yeah.